everybody. We're doing it again. You know, we've been very busy. We have so many interviews and one's better than the next. But this particular interview you're going to love because, especially people here in South Florida, because Judith Berson, Levinson, Dr. Levinson, wrote a book called South Beach at War. And here's the book. And it is splendid because I grew up in Miami Beach and I loved it. So South Beach at War, Sun, Sand, and Soldiers during World War II. It's called Camp Miami Beach, the most beautiful boot camp in America. You must buy this book. You know, if you weren't even a military person in Miami Beach at that time, maybe your parents were. And you can buy it and read it. And if you like Miami Beach, it'll be interesting to read because a lot of the things are not there now. That's what I have found. So I want to introduce you now to Judy. Thank you, Judy, for coming on this morning.
Well, thank you very much for having me again.
Yeah, well, it's always a pleasure. You have so much history and you actually have done a lot of other things besides writing this book. Tell us a little bit about yourself and then we can go into why you wrote the book. So who is Judy Berson Levinson?
Well, thank you. I started out as a bookkeeper, and then I got a job with the New Jersey State Employment Service before I moved to Florida in 1974. And at that time, I was a financial aid administrator, first at the University of Miami, Miami-Dade, and then Broward Community College at that time. And so that was my career until my husband bought a South Beach hotel. And I got involved with the veterans, which I can go into a little later. Now I'm retired and I spend a lot of time talking about World War II Miami Beach when the soldiers took over the hotels. And that's what I wrote the book about.
Have you found anything that no one knew about before? Something specific, something buried, or I don't know what, but was there anything that was like an aha moment in writing that book and brought you closer to other things? I know when you're writing, a lot of our authors find things that they never expected. What was a big one for you?
Oh my God, there were so many.
Okay, just tell us some.
Finding out that some of the Air Force recruits who came to Miami Beach had never seen an ocean before. One guy, he's from Indiana, he had never seen an ocean in his life. It was the biggest thrill for him. And another was finding out that only the hotels that had in-room bathrooms were taken over by the military, and some hotels actually remained for civilians, even though there wasn't a lot of travel during the war. A lot of the wives, like my father was stationed in Miami Beach for training, and my mother came down and stayed with some other women. And so there were hotels that were used by civilians during the war.
But at that time, Judy, was it true that a lot of Black men couldn't go into some of those hotels or into those bathrooms? Was it still on that way?
Well, at that time, in Miami Beach, it was restricted to Blacks. The workers would have to have a pass to come across the causeway to work. And even Sammy Davis Jr., who performed at one of the hotels, he couldn't stay in the hotel or in Miami Beach. He had to stay in the Black neighborhoods in Miami called Overtown. Yes, but we did have for the reunions that I hosted, a Black Tuskegee Airman who was with us at every one of the reunions. So he was staying in the hotel. And it's funny because my father always taught me that there was no segregation, there was no discrimination in a foxhole. You had to trust the guy next to you. So if you see the movies on the Tuskegee Airmen, what they had to go through was very sad and very shocking.
Yeah, that was very smart what your father said. That's really true. That's great. But you know what? As a Jewish person, I remember there are a lot of places in Miami Beach that were restricted to Jewish people too.
for a long time. No Jew was allowed to stay in a house or an apartment or a hotel above Fifth Street. The Blackstone, which is on 8th Street, was built by Jews for Jews. And one of my vets actually spent his honeymoon there. And when he got there, he sent a telegram to his wife and said, "I'm staying in our honeymoon choice."
And I told you in one of my other interviews, and personally, my grandmother lived at the Blackstone Hotel when it was a retirement hotel for 25 years until she passed away, I guess about 20 years ago, but has a lot of fond memories. And a lot of people did just what you said. They came down here, they had never seen the beach because they were coming from the Midwest. And as you said in your book, they wound up coming here on vacation. And then what happened? They moved here, didn't they? That's why South Florida is so filled with people from up north.
And we had a big building boom in the 50s of people who moved here. A lot of the guys who trained here and wanted to come back came back and used their GI Bill at the University of Miami, which at that time was a very small school. They were having classes in trailers. And the GI Bill, coincidentally, was the first financial aid program in America. And so all of the you said your husband used the GI Bill in California to get his education. Yeah, a lot of people moved here. We have a lot of vets who came here. My father stayed in New York, but he used to vacation here. He would bring the family down for vacations. So they really fell in love with Miami Beach. There's a saying in Miami Beach that you get sand in your shoes when you come here and you want to come back, because it's the beaches and the ocean is so beautiful. So when we named our first reunion in 1999, we called it Sand in Our Boots.
I love that. Well, something you made me think about, though, is that when I used to send friends up north, instead of postcards, I'd send these look like little orange crates, and you put it in the mail, and they had tiny little orange gumballs, and you sent it. It was like the oranges in these crates. And also, there are these little, I guess, plastic things with sand in them that you would send. So we've always been talking about why Florida did so well. Sand in your shoes and oranges.
Do you remember when we would send crates of oranges to people up north, real oranges to eat?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was
well, we still do. We have certain kinds of times, like Tangelo, certain periods of time where I will send a basket of fruit up north somehow, because, we are the place that grows the best oranges. I guess California would resent that, but you're right. But I want to get back to your book. So South Beach at War, there were a lot of things that happened here. We touched on it once before, that there were submarines cruising the ocean. And I don't know if you got into this, but did the US understand that? Did they know that they were there?
Yeah, because their purpose was to torpedo our supply ships going over to Europe to bring supplies. And so very often they were successful. They also, very surprisingly, would capture some of the guys on the submarines, the Germans, would take little Zodiac boats and come onto shore and go to movies and in Florida.
No
up and down
way.
the coast. And
really?
In fact, they caught some of them, and they had movie stubs in their pockets. So they would jail them, they would imprison them. And Bal Harbor, where Bal Harbor shops are now, was a prisoner of war camp during World War II.
We never talked about this. I don't think that's in your book, is it? I may have missed that.
Might not be. We used everything, the beaches, the golf courses. They would do target training into the ocean. But I don't think that I mentioned that we had a prisoner of war camp in Bal Harbor.
No, you didn't. See, now that's a whole new thing that we just learned today. The other thing I think I shared with you that during the war, my aunt was the manager of the Clevelander Hotel. That's where
Yep.
she met her husband then too. So I have a lot of history there, and I lived on 8th Street. My grandmother lived on, down there on 5th Street. And then I lived, I lived all through the beach, Surfside and that whole area. But reading your book, because I worked on Lincoln Road, and there were a lot of things on Lincoln Road that are not there now, like big shoe store and a movie house and restaurants.
Well, we still have the Colony Movie Theater at the west end of Lincoln Road, but you're right that there were many more, for sure.
And now they've closed traffic to Lincoln Road, which is
Ocean
good.
Drive. They closed.
Ocean
Well,
Drive.
yeah.
Well,
yeah,
Lincoln
but
Road, the whole road, they don't allow traffic, I don't think now, do they?
Right.
No.
It's a pedestrian street. It's one of our favorite places to go. It's really lovely and very lively. Lots of restaurants, cafes, shops.
So tell us about your alumni. Do you still do this every year?
What, the reunion?
Yes.
No, because most of the World War II vets have passed away. For a while, the Vietnam era vets had picked up on my reunion idea, and they would have they would bring in tents and put them on Ocean Drive and show the tourists what it was like to be in the Army. They'd have an officer tent and a civilian, not officers, the regular guys. Miami Beach, by the way, had 3 different groups who trained here. The main group in South Beach that took over all the hotels was the Army Air Corps, which, were considered the elite, the flying guys. And then another group were the infantrymen who got injured in battle. They would come back and be stationed in Mid Beach around Lincoln Road, in the hotels around Lincoln Road, and they would be reevaluated to see whether they would go back into battle or go home. And Lincoln Road was very busy then. The Cadillac showroom became a medical, area, and then another group that I discovered quite by accident, bidding on something on eBay, was a group of women who were secretly breaking enemy codes. They were the secret code breakers. And because their job was so classified, many of them went to their graves without ever telling anyone, including their families, what they did during the war. But they are attributed in Tom Brokaw's book at shortening the war by breaking enemy codes, so we would know what they're up to.
You are such a fountain of information. It's such a pleasure to always talk to you because, and we did an interview before, but I will just reiterate it that, yes, my husband came from California, and he was an Army Air Corps person and flew 35 missions as a pilot. And he was very impressed. He's no longer with us. About 4 years ago, he passed away. I wish he were here anyway, but especially because of your book, he has so much to say. But he really did enjoy his time. He had lots of girlfriends because you wrote in your book, women love the guys in the military, especially the flyers.
Men in uniform. Clark Gable was one of the recruits. His wife was raising money. Carol Lombard was raising money for war bonds. And the plane she was in crashed and she perished. And he was so despondent that he didn't want to spend the rest of the war raising money for war bonds. So he enlisted in the Army Air Corps and was stationed in Miami Beach. One of the hotels he stayed at, that he was billeted in, is called the Cadet in his honor. And but the girls would line up outside the Cadet and wait for him to come out every morning. So they had to keep moving him around to other hotels.
Because he had already been a movie star at that time, I gather.
Oh yeah, big time. And he had a difficulty. He was twice as old as the other recruits. And
Ah.
so in order to learn what he had to learn as an officer, he would memorize as if it was lines in a movie.
So now all this information, this very special information, how did you learn all that?
Oh my. Well, in addition to doing my research at the Historical Museum in downtown Miami, I got a lot of the information from the vets and the residents themselves. I created a notebook and I would mail it out to people and ask them different questions. So, for example, one of the questions was, did you have any romantic experiences you'd like to share? And it filled up my chapter called Sex in the City, Miami Beach. And when I asked, when the Tuskegee Airman responded to that, he said, if I had, I would have been lynched. The only way I could have a romantic experience was to go to Overtown and be with a Black woman. So, but one of the guys became like my substitute father. My father died very young at 46. So he wasn't aware that I was even doing these reunions. But one of the guys who was on my committee became like my surrogate father, and I became his surrogate daughter. And so he had a girlfriend when he was here, and the girlfriend's mother was working on Lincoln Road, so they had a lot of time to be together. And he said, if it weren't for her, he said, and he was about 75 at the time, he said, I would still be a virgin.
I love it. Let me tell you, I'm talking to Judith Berson Levinson, Dr. Levinson, and she wrote this wonderful book called South Beach at War, and it's Sun, Sand, and Soldiers During World War II. Camp Miami Beach, the most beautiful boot camp in America. And you can buy this, just go to, it's fairly small, so you get through it quickly, but it's filled with pictures and pictures. It'll just make your heart sing. It's so beautiful. And you can go to Amazon.com and get it. But it's worth your doing. And then going back to Miami Beach and see if you can see any of those places. But the pictures are great. And these are pictures that she didn't have personally. These were pictures that were given to you, correct?
I bought many on eBay. I paid for many from the Historical Association that has a very large collection of historic photographs. And then I got some from the vets themselves. I used to do speeches for elder hostel, visiting elder hostel groups. They're now called Rhodes Scholar groups. And
Yes.
I would ask at that time, was there anybody in the audience who was in the service in Miami Beach? And one guy was a gymnast, and he had a whole bunch of pictures that he lent to me so I could make copies for my, at that time I would do my show with slides. Now I have PowerPoint. But so I had pictures of him standing on his, like posing on a hotel railing, standing on his arms. So I got a lot of pictures from a lot of different places. But I wanted to
I was going to ask you about eBay for 1 second. So people actually were selling pictures on eBay, and why were they selling? Did they think someone was going to buy it, or what was their idea? They didn't know about you.
Not only pictures, I bought whole collections of letters between the soldiers and their family. And so after the soldier died, the vet died, the family didn't have anything to do with them. So I got a lot of information from the letters describing life in Miami Beach. But I wanted to show you something. When I did the first reunion, I did a lot of things for them. And one of the things I did was I recreated the caps that they wore. And one of the women who came to the reunion was a Gold Star mother, meaning she lost her son in World War II. And she used to make these little flags out of safety pins and beads. And then she'd sell them and give the money to the VA hospital. So what I did was I had the original company who made these make them for me and put the information of the reunion on it. And so everybody got to wear that at the reunion.
Oh, Judy,
And-
that is you. That's precious. You are
And-
really something.
And I created dog tags with the pictures of how they looked in World War II. So my dog tag made was me in a baby carriage, because I was born in January 27th, 1945, which was not really the end of the war yet. But by the way, I found out recently that was the exact day that Auschwitz was liberated, January 27th,
Oh, how
45.
beautiful.
So I was born on a special day. My
Yes,
father
you were.
got a 3-day leave to visit me, and I have pictures of us on the roof of his parents' building in the Bronx.
Judy, you see, we didn't know what we're going to talk about because we talked about a lot before, but see, you've given so much new information on this interview. I guess there's so much out there, it's hard to cover everything anyway, but I can see where you would be a great speaker. So if people are watching now and they would like you to come and make a speech, let's say they're in Broward County or Palm Beach County, do you do that?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I do that. I've done that for women's groups, children's groups, Hadassah, sisterhoods. I've done it all over Broward County, Miami-Dade County.
So
For
give us your phone number or how people can get in touch with you, and then we'll put it on this YouTube. What is it?
Okay, my email is J as in Judy, S as in Cheryl, BERSON @me.com. JSBerson@me.com.
Okay, and so we'll just do it that way. Then Dan will put it on this YouTube. So when it's sent out, we'll have it, and Dan has it in case we get any calls, because I would think you'd be a great speaker. There's so many groups that would eat this up, because many of the elders are in their 80s and 90s and they would know this.
Yeah, I've done it at Century Village and Kings Point and a lot of places like that where senior citizens, and
Right.
now young people want to hear it also because their parents or their fathers or their mothers or their grandparents were involved in World War II. Yes, I do it all over. And I have even more pictures that are on my computer, and I bring my computer and a projector and I show them there's pictures.
Oh,
So
Judy, this is
So
splendid.
even if they've read the book, there's always more. There's this, I want to show you also, I have a lot of these. These are books that were given out at the time. They have a lot of pictures and I learned a lot, but they also are like a high school or college yearbook with pictures of the people who were stationed at the time. So after we had 3 back-to-back hurricanes, I donated a lot of my memorabilia to the Wilsonian Museum, and they from time to time do a full display of those also.
So if I gave you the name of my husband who did come down there in the Air Corps, would you have a picture or his name? Is that how it goes?
Well, yeah, I've kept about 5 or 6 of these books. The rest are at the Wilsonian. But the reason I kept this book was because the guy who had the book put captions. He wrote, like they even had cartoons. And so some of the guys would write in it, and some of the guys would send them home to their parents as souvenirs. Another thing that they had a lot of that I donated were pillow shams that you could fold up, mail home to your mother, your aunt, your sister, your sweetheart, and then you fill it with a pillow, and they were called sweetheart pillows.
Oh,
So when I had the Edison Hotel, I had them all on display on the mezzanine level.
oh my gosh, Judy, you really are unique. I know you love this, but you probably, I think I could say this without anyone protesting, that you probably are the most unique person in the country that's done anything like this in World War II. Have you ever been televised on national TV? I think they should if you haven't been.
Last year for Memorial Day, a television station filmed me, and we did it at the Wolfsonian, and the Wolfsonian brought out a lot of my stuff and set it out so that they could view it. And then they televised it for Memorial Day weekend. So yes, but not, I wouldn't say nationally. Probably,
Yeah, well, I
probably
think
locally.
right, right. But I'll tell you, this is so good because there still are people living from World War II. And
Yes.
I'm sure there's still some who came to Miami Beach. And
Yeah.
I don't know how we find that. I find them, but I think that PBS or one of the national shows could find it. It would be very special. People would love this. I don't have any connections, but and I guess we're running out of time. So I just want to tell you, I love talking to you, and I just put your book up one more time. You know, you need to buy this book, South Beach at War, and I would call South Beach at Fun. They had a lot of fun. And for any of you who have family members who were down in South Beach, you want to buy this, and even if you didn't, buy it anyway. It's not expensive. It's a small little book, but it's filled with pictures and things all about Miami Beach. So, Judy, as always, thank you.
I just want to add one thing. I just reduced the price of the book so I could sell more, and I added a Kindle version for people who have visual difficulties.
Fantastic. You never stop, Judy. I'm so happy to know you and meet you and work with you. Thank you again, and we'll talk later.
Same here. I appreciate you very much.
Right. And I'm going to say goodbye with my verse to you, even